Good evening, everyone. My name is Elian Ramos Iarguicades. I welcome you to this week's Hangout. And tonight we're going to be talking about the #1 topic in every Latino survey. We're talking about education here. And for decades, whenever you mention the word education next to the word Latinos, the news that follow or the information that follows is usually not the most encouraging. But at the same time, what's going on is something that's very interesting, because at the same time, the Latino population is growing by leaps and bounds. And we have 1 in every 4 Latino students in elementary school is now a Latino child. And so these two things together create this unbelievable tide that is very uncertain. When you have these two things that come across at the same time. So tonight, to speak about this whole situation, and also about the solutions that are being put in place across the country, I have two of the most powerful women in education, and I'm utterly honored to have. I've been running around after these women to get them books for months now. They finally gave me the chance to bring them in. I'm talking about Lily Escalcen Garcia, who is the first Latina president of the National Education Association, the NEA. Lily, welcome to the show.
It's an honor to be here. Qué honor.
Qué linda. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Y luego, now I have Alejandra Ceja, who is the Executive Director of the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence for Hispanics. Hola Alejandra, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Hola Ilian, un placer estar con ustedes.
Muchas gracias por estar aquí las dos. I am so proud and so honored to know you both. I've known you for a couple of years now, and you are such an amazing pair of women. My God, it's unbelievable what you have been able to achieve for yourselves, but also I know for a fact, because I know you personally, that you are fighting every day for Latino education out there. And so let's start with, I'm going to go one by one. First, I want to talk to Lily. And Lily, you have such a fascinating story. My God, it's almost like you know, it's this, you should write a book at some point, and I know you have a book, so, you know, you have this amazing arc in your story.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about your story and how you came to be the leader of the nation's largest advocate organization for education in the country? And making history.
Well, I appreciate that. Mil gracias. And it is an honor to be in this position. And I want to give a shout out to my husband Alberto, who's watching from Mexico, from his home. Yes, we're still newlyweds, recién casados. And so it's very hard for us to be separated. But we do understand what that means to families, to be separated while you're waiting for all the paperwork to come through under the best of circumstances. My mother is an immigrant from Panama. And the only thing I really want to say about my story is that my parents were not, my parents didn't go to college. My parents had never had anyone in their families go to college. They were determined that their children would graduate from high school, and that was the big deal. I graduated from high school and was working in a Head Start program as a teacher's assistant. I had been the lunch lady, and I just loved working around kids. But I had a high school diploma, so that was about as far as I was going to go, until the teacher that I was working with said, Lily, you're really good with these kids. Have you ever thought about going to college and becoming a teacher? And all it took was planting that little seed, and you're going, all right, how am I going to do that? I'm going to college. I'm going to be a teacher. Oh. And that's why I know how important it is to plant those seeds in children. And my parents, they weren't against me going to college. It just never occurred to them. It wasn't in their experience that one of their daughters, let alone one of their sons, would go to college. But once that seed was planted, it was my life's dream to be that teacher, that role model for somebody else's child. So it's been an amazing adventure to get here, to have gotten more and more involved in the National Education Association, our union, and then to be elected by my peers, the 3 million educators who belong to the National Education Association. And here we are fighting for kids every day.
And I can see your passion. My God, it's like your eyes are gleaming when you're talking about the kids. Who better to be leading that organization? We are so proud of you, Lily. Just say that.
These are my kids behind me here on the wall. Those are the kids that I started teaching in that Head Start preschool. They turned 43 this year.
Wow.
And I turned 39. So it's getting harder to do the math.
Oh my goodness. And I know, Alejandra, you have an equally amazing story. Your story is more, you have been part of the administration for a long time, but you have been going through so much to get to where you are as the executive director of the Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics for the administration, which is actually, the one that sets the directive for every institution, the educational institution in the country. So how did you get in there? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you, Elian, and thank you, Lily. It's such an honor to be joining you all for this important conversation. But really, for me, the pave to my career was those doors were open because I was able to get an education. And what I tell students and parents is education continues to be the best investment that we can make for ourselves and for our country. Coming from the community I grew up in, the expectations were not that you would one day work at the White House, but let alone if you could graduate from high school, that was the accomplishment. And so for me to be able to have come to Washington, D.C. through educational programs like the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, that really opened the door for me. And in the position that I hold now, representing the largest, fastest growing minority population in this country, it's an honor to be able to tackle the education issue, to be able to talk about the progress that we're seeing, the gaps that continue to persist, and to ensure that every kid, regardless of zip code and income, can have access to a quality education so that we can have more Latinos at the table at all levels of government, from the federal, state, local, running our nonprofits, in the philanthropic community. So for me, it's an honor, and I love talking to students about just the opportunity to dream big and to reach higher.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I know, just because I know, and you mentioned something about how important this is for our community. And when I posted this, we immediately started getting questions from the community. So I'm now going to read one of those questions. This is something that, as you're probably very familiar, people, is in everybody's minds. So I'm going to be it there in a second on the screen. And the question says, have you specifically introduced or are you currently working on to provide young
So I don't know if we've lost Elian, but seeing the question that was raised in terms of what we're doing to support our DACA students, we have at the Department of Education provided guidance to parents, to students, to stakeholders about the importance of ensuring that our kids have access to an education. One of the things our initiative specifically did was provide the resources available for all those students that are interested in pursuing their education and finding those critical financial aid resources, is having those resources available, making sure we tear down that informational barrier that exists. So we put out a guide called Graduate. It includes a list of very important resources on all those states that are offering in-state tuition to our DACA students, to our Dreamers, those organizations that are offering that critical financial assistance. And our Department of Education has a website, a landing page that just basically provides critical resources to the DACA community. And one of the things our office is doing is increasing the awareness of how important it is for students that are eligible to apply for DACA. So that is one of the things that we've been able to do with the initiative. Obviously, absent the comprehensive immigration reform that we continue to fight for, we're going to have a long road ahead of us, but really trying to provide those resources to the community in terms of, you know, what does DACA mean, and how is the Department of Education assisting, how is the White House initiative, and it's trying to bring attention to those important resources that exist. So I would encourage folks to look at our Department of Ed site. We have a page specifically dedicated to DACA. We have fact sheets up there. We have a link to our Graduate Guide that includes that critical financial aid information for those students that are looking for scholarship assistance.
And I think, along with Alejandra, one of the things that NEA has worked on, obviously, we were so excited with the we have a brochure that you can download if you go to nea.org/immigration. But you'll see a lot of different resources there, resources leading you to the same kinds of websites that Alejandra was talking about. People need information. And one of the other things is for some folks, it's going to be, they might not have even the technology to access some of these things. So we've been working with more and more community groups like United We Dream to put on clinics, to actually have information clinics and how to fill out the form clinics, and where you might actually get some financial help for the application fee, all of those things, so that, and most of the time that's in a school. Parents feel pretty safe about coming into a school and having an educator, having their child's teacher say, I have information for you, and I'm working with United We Dream and other community organizations to have them understand how they can bring this important program into their lives.
And it's so amazing that you both focusing the efforts, or some of the efforts, towards the kids who are undocumented, because this is something that is affecting so many of our children, and it's just laudable that you're investing in that area too of education, which is very important. So besides education, what are some of the other efforts that you're going to be, some of the other initiatives that you're going to be heading under as you helm these organizations?
I will tell you, as we look at ways that we want our children to be safe, families to be secure, families to be together, we're looking at the political world too, because most of the things that that we're fighting for, and especially if you're talking about people who aren't citizens, someone needs to speak up and say, this is important to me, someone who has the right to vote. And so a lot of our educators, families, communities who really do believe, whether they're Latinos or not, but whether they really do believe that this is a social justice cause, they're asking a lot of questions from people who are running for school boards, to Senate, to Congress, legislators, governors, and we're very pleased that people are going out of their way to asking all of these candidates, where are you on making sure that immigrant families aren't separated? Where are you on making sure we have affordable college for everybody? Where are you on things like English language learners and bilingual programs in our schools? And I think for some of these policymakers, or maybe future policymakers, what's happening is if they don't have good answers, they're appreciating, I hope, the questions, that these are important, important issues, and people want to know how children and their families are being protected and being served.
Mm-hmm. Very important, and part of that too. And Alejandra, I don't know if do you want to add anything to what Lily just said?
I agree with Lily. One of the things our office is specifically going to be doing over the course of this next year is bringing attention to the fact that we've got an initiative that's going to celebrate its 25-year anniversary, September of 2015. So we want to have an assessment for the community in terms of what has been working, what are the gaps that continue to persist, where should we as a country invest in that future for this growing population? And the president has said it. We've heard other individuals, other stakeholders say it. The success of the Latino community is going to be directly tied to the success of this country. And now it's just become investing in education. It's an economic imperative. We have to do better. So for us, over the course of the next year, is really talking about the progress and the gaps that exist, and really having an honest national dialogue about where we need to continue to invest for the future of this country.
Can I add something on that? Because that is so absolutely important. One of the things that people have been talking about in terms of every child's education is the term equity. I was so excited that the Secretary of Education at a very important speech talked about really involving the Department of Civil Rights in places where we could see that children of color were not receiving the same equitable programs, the same wraparound services, the same facilities, the same computer labs and AP classes as students in usually more affluent neighborhoods. And that was music to my ears, because when you talk about the one single thing that you could do to begin this, it's not another test, it's not another hoop to jump through. It is all about saying that all children have what they need to succeed. And I really did appreciate the Secretary taking the time and the effort to make that very important civil rights argument.
And why should educators, why should anyone really care about this inequity issue? I mean, this is, I think when you talk in terms of this, you know, in Spanish we call them like palabras domingueras, you know, like these words that are very fancy words, but like in reality, like in concrete terms, why should a parent or an educator care about inequity in schools? How does it impact our children?
In today's global economy, a high school degree is simply not enough. If we're going to compete and we're going to ensure that we've got a prepared workforce, we have to ensure that we create that educational pipeline, starting from early learning until our kids can enter college and complete and get their degrees and be successful in the workforce. So I want to thank Lily for mentioning just the importance of what the Office of Civil Rights is doing and making sure that educators and parents have access to that data that is so critical. And let me just give you one example. We always talk about the importance of STEM education. If you look at the civil rights data collection, it'll give you an overview of whether or not your school district is offering the full range of STEM courses. So we have to be informed as a community if we're going to help create that change. But I mean, economically, it's going to make sense for us to really work together and ensure that across communities all over this country, that we ensure that equity and access is part of the national conversation.
And you've asked a very important question, Eliane. When you had a small population of Latinos, of Asian Pacific Islanders, when you had a small population and they weren't doing well, you still had the moral, civil, and human right imperative to do the right thing. And we've always made that case as educators that all our kids deserve, whether they're special ed kids, English language learners. But here's where we are now with the Latino community, and it's all about demographics. If you were not moved by doing the right thing because it's the right thing, because it's the moral thing, if that did not move you, if you were a hardcore person that just said, I don't want to spend my tax dollars on someone else's kid, then you should be moved by a business imperative. You should be moved by an economic imperative. We are now looking at a rich and wonderful diversity where our Latino kids are going to be making up 25% and growing of your workforce. Whereas it might have been a nice thing to do when you were talking about 5% of your kids, you cannot succeed as a country by failing 25% of your community, 25% of your future fails, your country cannot succeed. And so for people who were doing the right thing for the right reasons, yay. And for people who were never moved by the right argument, let's make an economic argument. No one can argue with those numbers.
Absolutely.
And like the organizers go, you know, when somebody says something important, and I applaud that statement because it's so true. This country is not going to survive on a global scale unless all of our kids are able to reach that educational threshold, you know, and cross it. So in you guys know this issue inside and out. This is what you live and breathe every day. In your opinion, what is the one action, either the legislative or curriculum-based or program-based or in terms of teacher equality, what is the one action that you believe could have the largest impact to increase the Latino education attainment levels? Anyone?
I would say for one of the things we're focusing on, if we're going to invest in the future of this country, we have to invest in early learning and making sure that it's accessible to the Latino community. You know, unfortunately, the majority of Latinos that are eligible for early learning programs are not enrolled, and so we have to bring attention to the benefits of making sure that we have access to high-quality early learning programs. The president has a $75 billion proposal that he's included in his budget request to Congress, so we have to take legislative action to ensure that we can make this accessible to Latino parents, that we can educate our community about the benefits. But you know, there's an economic return of investment here. For every dollar that we invest in early learning, there's a $7 return on your investment. And so if we're going to talk about strengthening that educational pipeline, we have to talk about making sure that early learning is on that agenda for the Latino community.
I kept thinking of, even as you were asking the question, 87 things that were important to do. And they're all important. It's hard to say this one because it's never going to be one thing. But I will go back and agree with Alejandra that, yes, preschool, but affordable college. But the AP chemistry class that will get you to that. But a decent class size when they're in the 3rd grade. Giving all kids what all kids need. And that means equity. For some kids, equity means that they come to school hungry and they need a school breakfast program. Not all kids might need that, but where we have the greatest needs in those communities, and too often the poorest communities are our communities of color. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that every child has what they need to succeed. And so I've always challenged people who say, is it just a dollar sign we need to hit? I said, walk into the best school you can find, in the best neighborhood you can find. Have a checklist on their theater department, the debate team, the sports team, the library that they have, the school nurse that they have. And then walk into the most challenged neighborhood, where the highest unemployment, the poorest families live, and go, those kids get the same stuff. They get the same access to the same high-quality facilities and programs. And that means that they have a good preschool program, and it means they have a way that's going to lead to a college education when they graduate.
Yes. Very beautiful, very beautiful. And you know, and you said this is a very amazing point, a very critical point that you made, because it's true, everybody deserves that education, and part of that too has to do, I think we when we talk about education, we usually just talk about children, but if we're going to talk about access to education for everyone, that also should include adults, right? And we have a question from one of our viewers as well, who is talking about that, and I'm going to set it up. I hope it doesn't go blank again like before. I'm so sorry about before. But the question is from Veronica Medeiros. Are there any programs out there focused on adult or working Latino students who are geared towards higher learning and continuing education?
Wow, you know, I know that if you go, it's going to be very different depending on which state you're in and which school district that you're closest to, but we still have some very good community night classes that are offered through school districts, and our community colleges are really the crown jewel in our higher education, because for so many students who are somewhere between high school and maybe thinking they'd like to go to a university, but wanting those job skills or wanting to pick up extra classes that will get them into a university, that community college is so key. We also don't want to forget that more and more high schools are offering college credit for courses that you can take in high school and through community classes through the district.
So the one thing I'll add is that we have an office here. It's called the Career Technical Adult Education Office. They are dedicated solely to working on this issue, to ensuring that adults in this country have access to resources that allow them to continue their education. They have mapped out by district which communities are offering, which community colleges or adult programs are available to them, and we have that on the website at the Department of Ed under the Educational Resources for DACA students. There's a section on adult education, and it's just important to, when I talk to parents about the importance of financial aid, I also let them know that they're eligible for financial aid, that they can access, if they fill out a FAFSA, that they can access financial aid to continue their education. So would love to send information so that we can get more of our parents, our adults in the workforce, the access that they need and that they deserve to continue and further their education.
Beautiful. And Lily?
Just again, that these are things that are going to be very different state to state, district to district, and so people should look up their school district. They should also look up community colleges, and like Alejandra was saying, there are opportunities for financial aid that sometimes just go begging. Nobody asks for them because nobody knows about them. So let me just add one more thing, because I know we're about to run out of time. The other thing that we need to connect with are families. Families who may not have a history of going to college, families who may not actually know what's out there or even what questions to ask. And it's why in the K-12 schools, in my world with our 3 million NEA members, we are trying to build bridges into the communities, into families, to have that school be the center of information, that school be the center of what those families need to have those kids just take off.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And there's so much that your organizations, both organizations, have to offer to the general public. So I want to end now with, how can people find out where all of these resources are? How can they get in touch with your organizations? How can they support what you guys do? You know, so feel free to share any information, contact information to you directly, anything.
I would be so bold as to ask people to go to my blog, to liliesblackboard.org. We have a lot of information there in Spanish, and a lot of information that will connect you with government services, a lot of information that will connect you, sometimes if you want to write to your congressman or your senator to let them know how you feel. And so it's part of the NEA.org family here at the National Education Association.
Beautiful. And I don't know if you have ever been to Lily's blog, but she's on top of every national conversation about education. So she updates it every week, and I am a big fan, Lily. So
thank you
for sharing that. And Alejandra, how can we find you?
Well, we have an exciting year ahead because we're going to be working on this anniversary year of action. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the community to get involved in the work that we're going to be doing. So they can follow us at Hispanic Ed. They can find critical financial aid resources and scholarship information at ed.gov/Hispanic Initiative. But really, this is a shared responsibility for us to make sure that we can talk about the importance of the next 25 years and where we invest. So I encourage folks to reach out to us to get involved. We also have a year-round internship program that's really exciting. A lot of that information is on our website, so hopefully we'll get some good information out to the community. And I just want to add, the last question, we invested $2 billion. We have a partnership with the Department of Labor to ensure that more adults have access to critical information, working with the community colleges and with business leaders. So there's a lot of exciting initiatives underway, and want to thank Lily. She's one of our commissioners, so having her expertise, it's definitely helped us move this agenda forward.
Beautiful. And I again, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I'm fangirling here because I am a big fan of these two women. I know the work that they do. I have seen them in action, in person, and I know how much they care about education in the community. So I want to thank you, Alejandra. I want to thank you, Lily, first for all that you do every day for the community, but also for accepting to be here today and sharing all of that knowledge, all that wisdom with my audience. I want to invite you again whenever you want. This is your platform, this is your show. You're free to, whenever, just reach out and you have a place to talk, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, el honor es para mí.
Kelly.
Realmente.
I want to urge everyone who is watching, I want to thank you first, and I want to urge you to visit lilysblackboard.org, her blog. I want to urge you to visit NEA.org as well. Lots of information and resources for education in the community. And I want to urge you also to visit the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics at ed.gov/Hispanic Initiative. And thank you so much for watching. This show is going to be, again, on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Elian Ramos. And I thank you all for watching. Good night, and I see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.